Hey, what's up? My name is Zash, and this is my DeckStorming series. This is a series that goes over new sets that haven't made it into the meta in Japan because it's not legal yet, and typically we only have a translation for the rest of the world. So in this series, we're gonna brainstorm, sort of maybe like deck ideas, go over what's new, what's interesting, and what potentially could be meta. So, Journey Together. The focus point in Journey Together is based around Pokemon that belong to a Pokemon trainer. We have 4 of those trainers in Journey Together, as well as an additional 2 that might be included, but it might come out as a separate set or in the Team Rocket set. Anyway, the 4 initial trainers are Iono, Hop, and Lillie, and the additional 2 trainers that might be in the set that I mentioned before would be Steven and Marnie. So the idea is to build a deck around one of these 4 trainers, but there are some individual cards also that we will look through that can be quite strong and, might make a surprise in the meta. Let's go through the set, let's have a look at Journey Together, and let's see what sort of decks we can make, what could be competitive and meta, and what could be fun. So I've gone through the list already prior to making this video, just to get an idea of what we can do. Let's go down the list and see what's sort of first up. I won't go through every card. If you'd like to see this deck list, I'll post a link in the description and you can check every single card out, but I'm just going to take the bits that are either going to work, that are popular, things that sort of stick out to me. We'll start off with Iono's Pokemon. Iono has a few Pokemon. Funnily enough, you would expect so. But I think the focal point around Iono, or the emphasis, is Iono's Voltorb and Iono's Electrode, as well as Iono's Belly Bolt, and I'll go over these now. So, if we was to make an Iono deck, there's nothing that stood out for me in particular, other than Iono's Electrode, which is this card here. It requires 2 energy, and this Pokemon does 100 damage to itself. Flip a coin. If heads, you can knock your opponent's active Pokemon out. Now, this is more of a fun deck. I don't expect this to be meta breaking in any way. At the end of the day, coin flips are very RNG. But the fun thing that we can do with this deck is it doesn't knock itself out. It does 100 damage to itself, so we can maybe consider attaching equip cards. Like, I think we could attach Hero's Cape. We could. There's a Luxurious Cape as well, stuff to keep it alive. There's also, I believe in this set, another Pokemon that basically gives all your other Pokemon 40 HP. So if we can get a flip off, do 100 damage to ourselves with Electrode, doesn't get knocked out, and we have a chance to knock out the opponent's Pokemon, then that's pretty good for a 1-prizer, just to, flip, knock out. Quite a fun deck, could work. Some other things that might work well with this, we could double it up with Togekiss. So, we flip, if we get a heads, we get the knockout, but we could essentially flip another coin and take an additional prize. So this card can be insanely good, I guess, into sort of EXs. It is a bit RNG, but at a single prize cost going into a double prize cost, this could be a fun deck and somewhat competitive. Iono's other cards, let's see. We have Belly Bolt. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic lightning energy card from your hand to one of your Iono's Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. 230 damage, can't attack next turn. Yeah, it's not the greatest. As often as you like, you may attach a basic energy from your hand to one of Iono's Pokemon. That's a pretty good ability if we can accelerate a lot of hands into. I mean, if we can accelerate a lot of energy into our hand. It's basically like a Baxcalibur for Iono's Pokemon. And then maybe running a similar engine like Champow, get all the energy in your hand. You could do energy retrievals, earthen vessels, get loads of lightning energy into your hand, and attach it to one of Iono's Pokemon. But then again, I don't think there's anything that can really capitalize on this. If it wasn't Iono's Pokemon, an electric Pokemon, I think Miraidon would have done really well here, but there's nothing too much else that stands out that does like a lot of damage, or that I've sort of seen off the top of my head with Iono's Pokemon. That's overly impressive. So as I was mentioning before with Voltorb's ability, we wanted to keep it alive so we can get another coin flip off, just not so it's not knocked out. We're basically forcing our opponent to knock us out instead of knocking ourselves out. And if they don't, for whatever reason, maybe we can run some control. Who knows? Maybe handheld fans, crushing hammers. Maybe something to just sort of shut them down as we do the coin flips. We have this edition called Lillie Deck. This Pokemon, if it's on your bench or in the active spot, I guess it doesn't matter where it is, each of your Pokemon in play gets 40 HP. So that with Voltorb would allow us to, be able to flip and keep us alive for next turn, and they have to sort of go into Voltorb. We can keep Voltorb alive. We have 6 turns, 6 chances to potentially take 3 prize cards. Another good card for Iono is Kilowattrel. Sorry if I'm butchering these names. It's essentially like a beer barrel. You must discard a basic lightning energy from this Pokemon in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. So if you're building an Iono deck, this is a good engine. It has to be a lightning energy, but I suppose it pairs well with Belly Bolt because you need energy in your hand to use its ability. So again, you could run Earthen Vessels and any retrievals, and then you got ways to basically draw if you've got a dead hand, or you go into Belly Bolt's ability. But for like win condition, I just don't see much really for Iono, unfortunately. Once during your turn, players may put up to 2 basic lightning energy cards from the discard pile into their hand. So then with this stadium card, we're able to either use our engine to draw, so we would go stadium we can go into Kilowattrel, I'm hoping I'm not butchering these names, to draw, or it can go into Iono's Belly Bolts to accelerate. Does this help any other decks? Can we use these engines in other decks? Maybe the Kilowattrel is going to be decent in Miraidon, but that's about it. Stadium card might be handy, but this ability is singled out for Iono's Pokemon, and there's nothing that stands out that's particularly good other than Iono's Electrode. The whole point of Electrode would be to flip as much as possible, let them only take 1 prizes, try and knock out EXs, and be ahead because you're running single prizes and you're just knocking them out straight away. So let's go over the next trainer, N. And unfortunately, I've been over this, doesn't look so good either. Probably worse so than Iono. With N, I think N's star card is Zoroark. Now, the card in itself seems really good, but it just doesn't have support to really use anything that I would say is competitive. I really like the idea of Zoroark EX, but it just, with the set that we currently have, doesn't seem promising. Anyway, ability trade. You must discard a card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards. That's a nice engine. Especially with Budew now being out, we're relying on a lot more supporters, stadium, tool cards, and Pokemon ability to get set up, basically get rolling with decks. So having this ability is really nice. It's a draw. And as for the attack, Night Joker, choose one of your benched Ends Pokemon's attacks, and it uses it as this attack. Now it's like Mew, but only with Ends Pokemon. Now, unfortunately, Ends Pokemon kind of ass. They're not that good. I'll go over what's caught my eye to set up with Zoroark, but it's a bit abysmal, unfortunately. This, in my opinion, will probably be the best card for Zoroark if there is a way we can accelerate damage counters onto Zoroark. So Reshiram's ability, and it's Ends Reshiram. This does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So if we can stack damage counters on Zoroark, we could be hitting for a huge amount, getting instant knockouts. The only thing that I can think of that would accelerate damage counters quick enough is Gardevoir. Reshiram, Gardevoir, Monkey Dory. It's getting a bit far-fetched. But to me, this is probably the best card N has as for Pokemon that Zoroark can for their abilities you can copy. Throw in a survival brace or a hero's cape, but it's not great as your opponent has to swing into you before you can utilize the damage counters, and they can probably jamming tower and remove those stack damage counters and knock you out anyway. At this point, might as well make the Gardevoir deck with Drifloon. So there are two other Pokemon that are in mind. There is Klinklang. Now it's a stage 3 Pokemon that's already not so great. That means we have to set up. And it's going to be on the bench, but the only sizable attack is a coin flip of 120 damage. Each heads gives you 120 damage. Yes, you can knock out EXs. But what's the chance you land 3 heads? It's not very good. It's inconsistent. And then the last Pokemon that stands out for Zoroark, again, not enough on its own. Darmanitan. So is discard all energy from this Pokemon. This attack also does 90 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you do 90 in the active, 90 in the bench. It's good for clearing setup. It's good for finishing off Pokemon. And then we also have the backdraft move. For each energy card in your opponent's discard pile, you do more damage. Now, not going to be great into Zard. Might be alright into Archaladon if we've already knocked a few things out. Be great into Gardevoir. Lots of energy there. If I went down the route of using Darmanitan, I suppose we could use Poison Mochi, dealing an extra 40 damage if our active Zoroark is poisoned. So then we would also use Brute Bonnet, Monkey Dory, some of the dark tech we've seen with Pesherons, but it's pretty difficult to say if this will actually be impactful until it's built, really. So that's my 2 cents on this build. Moving on to N's supporter cards. Okay, so moving on to N's trainer cards. We have N's Castle. For each N's Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's has no retreat card. So we've got free retreat. We don't have to worry about stuff getting maybe stuck in the active, and yeah, not a bad stadium. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Free retreat, sure. We have N's PP up. Funny. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench N's Pokemon. Now, as an item card, this is insane, but it's only for N's Pokemon. Been over sort of what N has available, and the only ideal target for this item card is pretty much Zoroark. But again, very situational, and unfortunately I don't think it'll be too competitive. Would be interesting. The Zoroark ability is interesting, so who knows what we can pull off, but I think that's about it for N's Pokemon. Next we will be going into Hop's Pokemon. I think Hop has definitely the best potential to become the most competitive out of this set, out of all the other trainers, and I'll go over why. So Hop's, I guess, star card is Zacian EX. On its own, not too great, but Hop has a lot of support and a lot of things you can do with Hop's Pokemon. So let's go over Zacian anyway. It's a 2 retreat cost, 230 HP. It's a basic Pokemon, so it's easy to get out and get going. Its first attack is Cleave for 30. This attack also does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Could be a Budew killer, I suppose. Or, you know, you can finish off Pokemon. The attack that is notable with all the support is definitely Brave Smash, 240 damage. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Brave Slash. Did I say Smash? Slash. Now, it costs 4 energy. Looks bad. It can't attack next turn. Looks bad. However, Hop has a lot of support. So let's go over some more of Hop's Pokemon and then we'll get into the trainer cards. So starting off to support Zacian, we have Hop Snorlax, and this is pretty good. The attacks of Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it doesn't stack, it says that. However, just having a Snorlax on the bench, we can buff Zacian's attack to 270. We can double that up with one of Hop's trainer cards. It's a tool card, Hop's Choice Band. When the Hop's Pokemon this card is attached to using an attack, the attack costs 1 less energy and does 30 more damage to the active Pokemon. So now that attack has gone down from a 4 cost to a 3 cost. Again, another 30 damage. Now we're at 300 damage. We have a stadium for Hop's Pokemon. Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So even without using Black Belt, we're doing 330 damage. That's knocking out pretty much every EX I can think of. Some other notable cards for Hop is Hop's Double. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. Essentially a free boss's orders. That is also a pretty good card to use in Hop's deck. You wouldn't need to... I mean, maybe you could run like one boss, but being able to do this, do the same thing as boss's orders, and then be able to use another supporter is pretty huge. We have Hop's Bag as well. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Hop Pokemon and put them on your bench, then shuffle. This is insane. This gets us Zacian, this gets us Snorlax out right away, and we can even get Hop's Wooloo to set up for the double if we need to essentially boss something out. So that is pretty much it for Hop's lineup. Hop's deck it seems pretty hot, and not to mention it's already a steel Pokemon. We have quite some good steel decks out there with steel support. You could probably run Archaladon, set up your Zacian super quick, and you just use Archaladon as a an energy accelerant. And then if you set up well, you're swinging 330 with a basic Pokemon. That is pretty insane if you ask me. So there's already some ideas out there, and yeah, definitely I think Hops is the most anticipated for me. Moving on to Lillie's cards. Lillie's interesting. So we'll start with the tool card first, and this is why it's interesting, because Lillie's Pokemon on their own, they're not anything again special, but Lillie's Pearl is interesting because if the Lillie's Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. That's pretty good. You're controlling the amount of prizes that are taken. As now this can be jamming towered, so it's not invincible, but it definitely is. I think it's a good card, but let's see what Pokemon we have to play with. So we have Lillie's Comfy, Flower Cool, pretty good setup. Maybe run 1 or 2 of these. This will get you set up. Search your deck for any number of basic Lillie's Pokemon and put them onto your bench, and then shuffle your deck. This is not a bad card. This synergizes incredibly well with one of other Lillie's Pokemon that we'll get to, Clefairy EX. As for the more bench Pokemon you have, the more damage Clefairy will be doing. So we have Lillie's Ribombee as well. This double ups as control, as we can pull irrelevant Pokemon to the bench, clogging their bench up full of stuff maybe they don't need to use into our matchup, as well as again feeding into the Clefairy attack, which does more damage for each of your bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. We also might be able to get away with some of Snorlax's tech as it goes out of rotation. This could be the next control deck or semi-control deck. We could run cards like Accompanying Flute, bringing out more Pokemon to the bench that maybe they don't necessarily want there, but it also works well for our Clefairy EX doing more damage, or even Erica, and the trade seems to be worth it. As long as we've got Pearl on Clefairy, we're using a EX, we're going into basic Pokemon and essentially trading a prize for prize when it should be 2 prizes from Clefairy due to Pearl. So Lillie's focus point is Clefairy for the Pokemon. We have Clefairy EX, or Lillie's Clefairy EX, and her ability is each of your opponent's Dragon Pokemon is now weak to Psychic. So this is a good counter to Dracopult. I assume Salamence when it comes out. I'll go over Salamence. That's interesting to me. That might be able to do a bit. So we've got a counter for Dragon Pokemon, because the reason they're so dominant is because they have no weaknesses. That's good. So no matter sort of your matchup, obviously some decks work better into others. You don't have to worry about weaknesses. So Lillie's Clefairy is great in that sense, and its attack is Full Moon Rondo, 20 plus damage. This attack does 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent. So it's not a Terra Pokemon, unfortunately, but we could probably run this with a Terra deck. Basically, if we want to use Clefairy as the main attacker, we have a Terra Pokemon set up. Yeah, we use the Stadium card, make the bench bigger. Yeah, if we have 8 Pokemon on our bench, that's 160 plus 20, 180 damage. That's an okay card, but we have this weakness, I suppose, but it's not the best. It's only great into sort of dragon Pokemon. So that's the 4 trainers for Journey Together. But outside of the trainers, there's also some cards that have picked my attention up, and the 2 are Salamence as well as Tyranitar. We will go over Tyranitar. This is interesting, considering we've already had an item lock card. So what I'm thinking with Tyranitar, well, let's go over Tyranitar. Ability. While this Pokemon is in the active spot, you can't play item cards. They can't play item cards from their hand. We have a second item lock card. So this is where it gets fun. We've been bestowed Budew. I'm thinking Budew Tyranitar you can just play the whole game and lock your opponent out, completely out of item cards, just throughout the whole game. You open with Budew, start getting Tyranitar set up. You can rare candy into Tyranitar or TM Evo if you're against something else that does something the same. And it's a one prize. Everything's one prize. So this is phenomenally good. I think, this is something to. This could be pretty dangerous. Definitely can be competitive. So if you open up with Budew, you have a Tyranitar out. They're just not playing item cards for the whole game, it seems. So that's my combo there. That's my 2 cents on Tyranitar. Very, very interesting. I definitely will make a deck around this. And its attack is 150, which is not bad. So for a 1 prizer anyway. Now, most EXs are about 320, 330. So we have a couple of options. Poison Mochi, then we're using Brute Bonnet to poison our Tyranitar to get the effect of Mochi off, doing an extra 40 damage, that's 190. You're knocking out pretty much anything in 2 hits, and item cards are locked out. Very good. Sure, while this is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any items, so they could boss out something on your bench. But I suppose it's equally important to be smart with your bench. Maybe you only have 2 or 3 Tyranitars set up, so the only other thing they can boss is another Tyranitar. If we took this approach, then we could go into Janine's Secret Art, not having to rely on Brute Bonnet, and just having a nice lockdown of the active spot, while also doing enough damage with Poison Mochi. Tyranitar Budew, Poison Mochi, something on these lines. We'll be experimenting with. Could be quite deadly. The last card in Journey Together I would consider competitive. It's Salamence, doing a whopping 300 damage with Dragon Impact, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. Now, I guess at first glance this looks like a heavy move with discarding energy, but I think Salamence and Baxcalibur works really well together. You just need to attach a fire energy from hand, Baxcalibur up 3 energy onto Salamence, and he's ripping, he's going. So again, Salamence can run something similar to Chen Pao Engine, where we sort of bring energy back from our discard pile with superior energy retrieval, attach it with Baxcalibur, and do 300 damage. So to knock out most EXs, there's usually a remaining 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 HP. We could even consider Duskull here into Dusclops, or we could go Black Belt. Defiance Band would work really well here if we're behind on prize cards to get the extra 30 damage in, and yeah, definitely can knock most things out, if not anything out. And it's also a dragon Pokemon, has no weaknesses, 320 HP. I think this also could be a menace. I think this is a pretty strong card. It depends if we can get set up quick enough and well enough, and yeah, not bad at all, not bad at all. Let's go over to this as well. We have Steven's Metagross EX and Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX decks revealed. I think these might come out during the same time as Journey Together, or it might be the next set, which is, I think it was a Team Rocket set that they said they were going to bring out. Anyway, let's go over these cards. These are a lot more promising than the sets that we've seen before. But these alone, they have some crazy abilities. So we'll start with Marnie's Grimmsnarl. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may search up to 5 basic Dark Energy cards from your deck and attach them to Marnie's Pokemon any way you like Charizard, but does more. So 5 dark energy, pretty good. Its attack is also 180 and do 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's okay, nothing crazy, I suppose. But this is where the combo comes in with Marnie, or this is how Marnie is intended to play, is using Marnie's Morpeko, Spiked Wheel, plus 20 damage. This attack does 40 damage for each dark energy attached to this Pokemon, so you could accelerate 5 energy, attach from hands. Yeah, you're doing 200, 240, 260 if you have an attach from hand. There's also other ways you could accelerate more energy switches, crispin. Fortunately we lose dark patch, but I think that would be a bit busted. So yeah, you got a basic card that's, you know, you can be ramped up really high, and you could probably close the gap and knock out most EXs. I'm sure there's probably a way there, but some really cool combos. We also have her Stadium card. Once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a Marnie Pokemon, reveal it, put it to their hand, and shuffle their deck. It's not a basic Pokemon, so we can get our Grimmsnarl into our hand with ease and rare Candy up or evolve it from hand. It's pretty good, and it's good setup. It's a lot of flexibility with being able to choose Marnie's Pokemon with that Stadium. Okay, so we have Steven's Metagross EX as our next trainer deck and our last trainer deck. On its own, doesn't seem so great, but it has a lot of great support, and it can be like a really tanky unit. So Steven's Metagross EX, once during your turn you may search your deck for a basic Psychic Energy and Metal Energy, attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. They're not secluded just to Steven's Pokemon, so we can use them on other Pokemon. So this allows a lot of other things to come into play, and we synergize it not just with Steven's Pokemon, but everything else that we have available to us. Not only that, we've had a Metagross line before, and it might even be worth replacing Steven's Metang. Oh, we can't replace. Evolves from Steven's Metang. I was wondering if we could replace Steven's Metang with the original Metang that has an ability. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and if you find any energy there, you can accelerate them. We also have a lot of steel supporter stuff anyway. Maybe with our Chaladon we can do something here. Who knows? But there's a lot we can do. Some of other Steven's cards is his Carbink. As long as this Pokemon is on the bench, each of Steven's Pokemon will take 30 less damage from attacks. And it's the same again with his Stadium. So essentially this is a 400 HP unit. He is strong. He is big. He is very tanky. I guess you could even drop Hero Cape on there, and 500 HP could probably make it even stronger. We have that stage 2 Pokemon from Journey Together, an extra 40 HP. We could be really ridiculous with this. We can essentially get Metang to 540 HP and just be an absolute unit. So I think the idea here is to sort of tank and spank. You know, I don't think there's anything we would have to be worried about other than Roaring Moon EX, because it's just a knockout, but a lot of HP. So that's another interesting card. I think there's one final card I wanted to go over. I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but I think I'll mention it anyway. Mamoswine EX. EX stage 2, 340 HP. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hands. And this attack is 180 plus. This attack does 40 more damage for each stage 2 Pokemon. The things I can think of straight away off the top of my head: Pidgeot EX. You can even search for Pidgeot EX, so it's such an easy setup. You can set up other Mamoswines. If we have 5 stage 2s on our bench, we're doing an extra 200 damage. Yeah, 380 damage. You're knocking out pretty much everything. That's if you can get all the stage 2s running straight away. But you could run Pidgeot EX. We could run the other card from before. That gives us an extra 40 HP maybe. But yeah, this could be good, but I feel like the longer the game goes out, the weaker this gets, obviously. But you can knock out some big things straight away, and then, you know, boss into stuff like, you know, utility Pokemon like Squawkabilly, Fez, and finish off that way. So definitely I feel like something could be done with Mamoswine EX. It's just getting it, like, all this stage 2 set up as quick as possible. Its ability alone helps you search for other Mamoswines, maybe a Pidgeot EX, and just get you rolling. So to conclude and wrap up on this video, my personal favourites in this deck is definitely Salamence EX, as well as the Tyranitar that can item lock. Probably Hop's deck, just because of the amount of ridiculous support you got. Yeah, you know, the Zacian, the Snorlax, the sheep that acts as a bosses. You've got the Stadium do more damage. You've got the Equip do more damage. And Zacian is steel. It can work with our Shalodon. Then outside of that, yeah, Marnie's might be fun. Steven's might be fun. And I would say Iono's might be fun to play. Unfortunately, I was hoping more from N. Doesn't look so great. But for competitive, definitely look out for Tyranitar, Salamence, Hop, and if you want to make a fun deck, or a deck that, you know, it can perform but it's not quite as competitive as the rest, you can definitely look into Iono.